laners, and how they kind of, what role they fill in specifically the team fight stage. So the solo lane is a little bit tricky, because in a sense you can almost play anybody in the solo lane. You can play pretty much any role you could, or any character type you could put in the solo lane if you really wanted to. And I can't really talk about all of them, so I'm going to talk about our warriors, because warriors are the most common in the solo lane, and they're typically considered the best in the solo lane. If you look at the highest level competition in the SPL, people are playing warriors when they want to win. Occasionally they'll bring a guardian in the solo lane or something, but for the most part, people are playing warriors in the solo lane, so that's what I'm going to focus on here. Hopefully I can finish this video before Artemis tears through my Titan. Okay, so first thing I want to talk about in solo lane is your opening to the game. So I'm in this lane right here. I'm going to walk over here to the speed buff. Anytime you're playing solo, you're going to follow your jungle at the start of the game to the speed buff right here when the speed buff spawns at 9 seconds. Or did I say 9 seconds? Sorry, 5 seconds. Your jungler is going to pull the speed buff, and then you guys are going to clear that as fast as you can. The jungler is going to pick up that buff. Then you're going to come over here, and you're going to clear the blue buff with your jungler as fast as you can. You're going to pick up that buff, and then you're going to come to lane. Your jungler may follow you to lane, in which case you want to clear the wave as fast as you can, and then walk over to the fire pit right over there. It's behind that rock there. It's right there on the minimap. Clear those fire elementals, and then come back to the lane, and then you're just going to kind of get in a 1v1 with the solo laner. If he doesn't follow you to the lane, then you're just going to kind of chill under tower, assuming the other jungler came to solo lane, and just let them out clear you. Just try not to get killed, and then clear the wave when they go to fire elementals. And then it's just going to be you and the other solo laner, and you're going to get to duke it out in lane. So, the solo lane is sort of a back and forth battle of mind games and trying to force your opponent to do things that you want him to do so that you can control the dynamic of the lane. So, one of the most important things about solo lane, or really any lane, is being able to get wave pressure. And the way you're going to do that is by clearing really fast. So, you want to try to, for whichever character you're playing, you want to figure out the most optimal way to clear the wave as fast as you possibly can. And also, it never hurts to get kills too. So if you're able to, or if you're in a beneficial matchup where you can potentially kill the other solo laner, either while the wave is there or after you've cleared the wave or whatever it may be, then you want to go ahead and do that too. But don't get so caught up in looking for kills that you forget to clear the wave or you make other mistakes. So depending on how that exchange goes on each wave, you're either going to get lane pressure where you clear faster, you push your opponent under the tower, or you may lose lane pressure where you get pushed under your tower. You're going to do different things. One thing to keep in mind that's really important is that if you get so much lane pressure that your solo laner has to back up to the tower and let minions enter the radius of the tower and take damage from the tower in order for them to die, then your opponent is not going to get any gold for the deaths of those minions, which is really important. So like right here, if there was actually a solo laner here, and all these minions went under the tower, any minion that takes damage from the tower, your opponent's not going to get any gold from. So in the early game, this is a great tactic to get ahead of your opponent, is to try and get lane pressure and get your minions into the tower so that you get ahead of them in gold. Another very important thing about lane pressure in the solo lane is that it allows you to rotate. So whenever you get lane pressure, you clear faster and then your minions are pushed up on their tower. That opens up their entire jungle, their side of the jungle that you can rotate into. You can rotate to mid lane because they're stuck under their tower clearing the minions. You can walk over here to mid lane, set up ganks to get your, not only are you ahead now, but your other teammates are ahead. You're going to start winning those lanes. You're going to come back to your lane. You're going to be fed. You're going to dominate your the other solo laner even worse, and you're just going to snowball off of that. It's just your lead's going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So out-rotating your opponent, or also not getting out-rotated, is very important. On the flip side, if your opponent is getting lane pressure on you, and you're pushed under the tower back here, and you have to clear your way back here, they're probably going to rotate as well. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you're calling that out. If your opponent is missing from the lane at any time, or especially if they're leaving the lane and you can't leave it because you haven't cleared yet, you got to call it out. So if you're in comms, and you can just tell your teammates, just say, hey, the solo laner's missing, he might be rotating to you, or if you think you know where he is, like maybe he's at the blue buff, you can say something like that, but just make sure that they know so that they're prepared for it. The second thing you want to do is rotate. So you may not be able to rotate as soon as they do, but as soon as you're able to rotate, you should, because a big misconception that a lot of people have about rotations is that they think, well, oh gosh, I called the rotation out, so I'm good, like my hands are clean. That's not really the case. You want to call the rotation out so your teammates can prepare, but you still should rotate, unless you're specifically a character that's designed for split pushing, or which means pushing down towers away from the team fight. And then what you really have to do is make sure that you rotate. Even if you get there later than they do the fight, you want to at least be in the fight, because even if you're losing the fight initially because the other solo laner got there first, you might still be able to come in at the end of the fight, clean up some kills, and maybe even out the fight a little bit. So it's very important that you do that. It will not only help your team in terms of just stopping them from getting behind, but it'll also just make them a lot happier with you and improve the team chemistry, because a great way to make a lot of experienced Smite players really mad is to not rotate when your laning opponent rotates. That's a great way to piss people off. So you want to make sure that you rotate as often as you can. Another thing to keep in mind, though, is that if you rotate at a time when there's not really an opportunity to do anything, like let's say, your mid lane is pushed all the way up to their tower, so, you'd have to dive their tower to get anything done. There's no camps in their jungle that you can invade, like those are all down. So there's nothing you can really accomplish by rotating. Then you want to be careful about it, because if you then rotate and get nothing done and your laning opponent stays in the lane, then they're not only going to get an extra wave of experience that you didn't get, but they can get some damage on your tower, maybe push down your tower, which gives them a lot of pressure in the lane, because you don't have a tower to fall back to anymore. So it's kind of this dance that you have to figure out, where you kind of have to learn, when you have pressure, can I rotate and should I rotate? And if you don't have pressure, is the other opponent going to get anything useful off this rotation, and as such, should I follow him, or is the opponent wasting his time rotating, and should I stay here and get extra XP and farm up and all that? So those are a lot of the main things that you want to focus on in the laning stage as a solo laner. A couple other things I want to talk about. You'll notice that I bought teleport at the beginning of the game. As a warrior, you're almost always going to buy teleport. There's a couple newer strats coming out where people are buying Wrath, but for the most part, you're going to buy teleport, and this is for two reasons. One, it is a long, long way from the fountain back to solo lane. I mean, it's a long way to mid lane, but like to solo lane, it is a long walk. And so teleport makes that a lot quicker, and this helps make sure that you don't lose as much XP whenever you back. Usually you can back and then get back before the next wave gets to your lane, so you don't miss any XP at all. It also allows you to rotate faster. I talked a lot about when you get lane pressure, you want to rotate. Obviously, you can do that by just walking over to the lane, but like let's say you're over here and you get lane pressure, and then your teammates decide that you guys want to do Gold Fury, or maybe you guys have some wars up and you see that the other team is doing Gold Fury, and your teammates can go engage in them, and you can just teleport over to that ward by the Gold Fury or something like that, or teleport to the mid lane tower, and be on top of them almost instantly, and by the time the other solo laner is calling out, hey guys, he's rotating, he's teleporting, you're already on top of them and just messing them up in the fight. So teleport is a great active relic, it's called now, for solo laners, and one that you should make use of all the time, especially on warriors who don't really need beads the way some of the other squishier characters do to survive, so they can get away with buying teleport and use it to great advantage. It's also important to make sure that your teammates know when the opponent is teleporting, or if he already used his teleports. That way they can know that they'll know that they should expect a rotation from the teleport, or that they won't expect rotation from the teleport, things like that. So just making sure your teammates know what's going on. Other than that, that's really it. I guess one other important thing to keep in mind is just know where your jungler and where the other jungler is as often as you can. There are great places to ward in the solo lane are right there in that corner by the blue buff and by your own blue buff, because that way those are some very common paths that junglers will take when they want to gank you, and you want to make sure that you're not getting camped by that jungler. Also, if you're having trouble in your lane, you can have your jungler, you can talk to him and say like, hey, can you come gank it, help me get a kill, get some pressure off this lane, things like that. But please keep in mind, this is something I just want to clear up. If you get soloed in solo lane, it is not your jungler's fault. So please do not yell at your jungler, because one, you'll look like an idiot, and two, you're going to piss him off, and he's probably not going to help you for the rest of the game, all right? So if you get ganked by the other jungler, and your jungler wasn't there, it's also still not your jungler's fault, I mean, it may be the jungler could have been there, but they can't be there all the time. So try not to be too toxic. I know solo lane kind of puts you out on this, your own island, where a lot of things can happen to you, and if the teammate decides to focus your lane, it can be hard to deal with that. But being toxic towards your other teammates is not going to help you at all, so you want to keep that in mind. And one other thing about warding that I should mention is that there are a couple characters, such as Thanatos, Thor, or Ratatoskr are kind of the main ones, that have semi-global ultimates that they can use to set up ganks. And so rather than ulting from right here or right here, a lot of times what they will do is start their ult from the Gold Fury pit right there. So throwing a ward on there might be a good thing to do against those specific characters, just because it can help you catch out those rotations and those ganks ahead of time and avoid them. So yeah, that's kind of the basics of solo lane laning. I'm gonna head back to lobby now so we can talk about team fights. Um, yeah, that's what you want to focus on. And solo lane is really just about that dance back and forth with the other solo laner, getting yourself ahead of them and doing whatever you can to get your the rest of your team ahead as well. Now, what you'll notice if you start to play solo lane is that different characters are better than this at others, because there is a laning stage and a team fight stage, and some warriors are very inclined to dominating the laning phase. So they can get ahead really easily. They can bully their opponent out of the lane and push them under tower and make them lose gold, and all things like that, and then they can get early rotations and snowball off of that. Other warriors don't have such great clear in the early game, or they're not as good as fighting, as good at fighting, so they have a harder time doing that. So for those, your main goal is to just simply not get behind. Just minimize the damage as much as you can. Try to stay even and try to not die, not feed. Try not to let your buffs get invaded too much if you can. And that way, just by staying even with them, if you're a character that doesn't do so well in the laning phase, and you're probably a character that's going to do a lot better in the team fight phase, and so just by staying even with them, once the game transfers into the team fight phase, you're going to have a really strong impact. So that's what I'm going to talk about now, is the team fight phase. So I'm going to go over the warriors here. Again, there's a lot of gods that can be played in the solo lane, but primarily warriors are played, so I'm going to talk about the warriors and their roles in the team fight phase. So I'm going to group the warriors into 3 different categories. I did something similar with junglers. I had more categories with the junglers because it's a little bit more dynamic, I guess. But we're going to have 3 categories for warriors and their roles in the team fight phase. In general, something I can say across the board for warriors in the team fight phase is that they're always usually going to be a frontliner, meaning that you're going to be in front of the rest of your teammates. You're going to be initiating fights a lot, you and the support, depending on what kind of characters you're both playing. And you're going to be also diving the other team's backline. So you want to get on top of the squishy damage dealers in the back, and more than anything, just be a nuisance. I mean, if you're really, really fed, you might get a lot of kills, but at the very least, just use your crowd control, use the damage that you have, just to distract them, push them out of the fight, prevent them from doing the damage that they want to do in a team fight to your squishier characters, and then that allows your squishy characters that do a lot of damage to be in the right positions in team fights to do the damage that they want to do. Another thing that's important to do is if you're a character with a lot of crowd control, you can also be a peeler for your team, which means that if the other team is killing your teammates, or they're attacking them and your teammates get low on health, using your crowd control and your abilities to kind of help your teammates survive that fight and just get them out of danger. That's what peeling means. So if you hear that term, that's what I'm talking about. It's just doing anything to kind of help your teammates that are being attacked. So more specifically, I'm going to talk about the sort of 3 categories of warriors in the solo lane that I think there are, and this kind of shows how they transition from the laning stage into the teamfight stage. So the first group, I guess, that I'm going to talk about are the lane bullies. So this is kind of seems backwards because we're talking about the teamfight phase now, but it kind of transitions. So the lane bullies are the ones that I talked about earlier, that in lane they do a very good job of getting ahead, bullying their opponent out of the lane into the tower, making them lose experience, making them lose gold, being able to out-rotate them and get pressure in other lanes and doing all that. And usually this happens for one of 2 reasons. Either you're playing a character that is very, very, very good at clearing really, really fast, so you can clear the wave faster than them, and then your opponent has to fight you and the wave, and usually will lose that exchange. Or your character is just very good at 1v1 fighting other gods, and so regardless of your ability to clear the wave, you just fight them, and you just do a lot of damage because they're very good at doing that, and they'll usually win those exchanges. These characters generally are not as strong once you get into the team fight phase, and they have less of a presence unless they do really well at getting ahead by using their advantage that they have of being able to bully the other warrior out of the lane. So you want to, if you're playing one of these characters, you really want to press your advantage early and make sure that you use that ability to bully the lane to your advantage and your team's advantage to get everybody ahead. So we're going to go through these. The first one is Chalk. Chalk, his strength is that he can clear really, really well. His axe, his number 1, is on a very short cooldown and does a lot of damage once he gets leveled up. And he has another damage ability that can help him clear. He also has a slow and a heal, so if you clear the wave really fast and then start fighting the other warrior, you're going to be damaging them, also healing up, making them slow. And so he just wins a lot of those exchanges. Chalk is sort of the quintessential lane bully. Like when you think of a lane bully, one of 2 gods come to mind, and one of those is Chalk. The second one is going to be Erlang Shen. Erlang Shen is one of the newer gods, and Erlang Shen is great in lane for a different reason than Chuck. Erlang Shen doesn't have the best clear out of all the warriors, but he wants to fight you. His number one, his auto attack stim ability that he has, once you get that to about 3 or 4 points, does absurd amounts of damage. So what Erlang Shens will do sometimes is they'll just sit there and kind of auto attack the wave, and then if the other warrior is brave enough to come up and try and clear the wave, he'll just ignore the wave and just start fighting you, and he'll just like get you to half health so fast that you don't know what's happening, and then he'll knock you up, and then he'll pin you to the ground, and then he'll ult you and play back, and it's just so much CC and so much damage and so much lockdown on this character that it's almost impossible to fight him in lane in the early game. So he can get a lot of kills early, or at the very least keep his opponent at low health so that he has to stay under tower and get that early advantage and then rotate and get kills like I talked about. All right, the next one. We're going to leave Hercules for a different category. We're going to talk about Osiris. So Osiris isn't in the greatest position right now. He's not getting a lot of play, but he does have some value. And Osiris is similar to Erlang Shen in the sense that he wants to fight you. But kind of in a different sense. So Osiris has this auto attack chain where he auto attacks twice, and then his next two auto attacks are like AoE auto attacks. So they attack multiple characters. So he can basically clear the wave just by auto attacking it, and then that leaves him up to use all his abilities and more auto attacks to fight the other character. And just the nature of his kit makes it so that if you're getting in just like a auto attacking battle or a boxing battle, as people would call it, with Osiris, you're usually going to lose that battle. He's going to outdamage you most of the time. Next one is Raven. Raven is the other of the two gods that I said always come to mind when you think of lane bullies. Raven, similar to Erlang Shen, doesn't have the best clear. I mean, he has good clear, but it's not the best in the game by any means. But what Raven does is he clears decently well, and then he has a lot of crowd control and a lot of damage in his abilities, and also has a really strong ability to just auto attack fight. So similar to Osiris, if you're just auto attacking with a Raven, you're probably going to lose that battle. So usually one of two things will happen with Raven. Either he will out-clear the other opponent, because like I said, his clear is not bad, so he can out-clear the other opponent and then turn around. His ability is on a really short cooldown, so they'll probably be up again, and you can just start fighting them, punching them down, poking them out, and then they have to stay under tower a lot, and you just get that lane pressure and then rotate and get all the kills. The other thing is that you clear at the same time as them, and then you just turn around and it's just you versus the other person, and again, you just fight them, and you're usually going to win that battle. All right, next one is Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong is more similar to Chak. He has very, very strong clear. His number one is a line ability that does 25% extra damage, 20 or 25%. I think it's 25. We'll take a look here. 25% extra damage to minions and camps. So that is very, very good at clearing the minion wave, especially when you get Bluestone Pennant on Sun Wukong. It's a very strong item on him. So his 1 will almost full clear the wave. If you throw his 2 in there at the same time, you're pretty much going to clear. And so you're just going to clear faster than your opponent most of the time, and that's just going to allow you to push them under the tower, like I said, get XP, make them lose gold, and snowball the game. Yeah, all right, that's it for that category. The next category, you know what? I think I grouped 2 categories together. All right, so that's one category. Now we're going to talk about the other category. The other category... Oh, no, I lied. There is 2 more categories. Okay, I'm getting distracted. Okay, the next category are the team fighters. So when I say team fighters, what this basically means is they suck in lane, all right? There's not a lot of them, but there are a couple. Actually, there might just be one. All right, there's one character here that sucks in lane until like level 11 or 12. But once this character gets to the team fight phase, this character is one of the best team fight gods in the game. And just decimates the entire team. So all you have to do with this character is not even stay even, but just kind of only get a little bit behind, you know, just not too much behind in the laning phase, and just not die too many times, and you're going to be golden in the late game. And that character is Amaterasu. Amaterasu has incredible team fight presence. She has her 1 gives auras to her team that increase their movement speed or their damage, depending on which one you have, and it's a significant amount, so that benefits your entire team in the team fight. She's also very fast herself. She's hard to kill. She has heals. She has her number 2 ability reduces damage taken and also does a lot of damage to the other team. She has a dash, a silence, so lots of mobility, more crowd control on the silence, and then she has a massive AoE ultimate that hits 3 times, does a lot of damage, slows and stuns the other team, and just there's so many things that Amaterasu brings to a team fight that you really, really want to punish her early in the laning phase, because if you don't, she's just going to decimate your team in the late game. So Amaterasu is the big team fight god. Now, there are some other gods here that you might say, well, they're great team fighters too, but I'm going to leave them into another category called the jack of all trades category, or the all-around category, whatever you want to call it. So these are gods that do a lot of things really well, but not necessarily one specific thing that makes them stand out above everything else. So the first one is Bologna. Bologna has a lot of things that her kit offers. She offers a good amount of damage. She offers a lot of crowd control with her slow, her stun, her disarm. So she has a good team fight presence, and she has decent clear. So she doesn't have the best clear in the game again, but she has good clear. So she can handle herself in lane. She can get kills sometimes if the other opponent makes a misplay or you outplay them. And then when she gets into the team fight, she's not the single best team fight god in the game. Like I said, I mean, that's Amaterasu, but she still has a strong team fight presence. Her ultimate benefits the entire team. She has a lot of crowd control that helps her team. She can peel. She can engage on the other team. She can disrupt the backline a lot, like I said. So Bologna is great at doing a little bit of everything. So she's a great one to pick. Next one is Guan Yu. Guan Yu I almost put into the team fight category, just because he is probably the second best team fighting warrior in the game. And the reason I did it is because his laning phase is really good too. Guan Yu has his number 3 ability does a ton of damage to the wave, and he can clear really, really well with that ability. But Guan Yu's ability to fight in lane kind of depends on the matchup. There are certain matchups that he does really poorly against, like anybody that has a silence or a stun or anything that can interrupt Guan Yu's number 3 is Taolu Assault, which is his main clear. Because if he doesn't have that, he has a really hard time clearing. But if that's not the case, he is not only good at clearing, he's pretty good at fighting. He has a lot of abilities that synergize with each other to allow you to poke down your enemy and win a lot of exchanges. His ultimate does a lot of damage if used correctly. But the main part of Guan Yu's kit is his heal. He has, I'm going to go take a look at it actually. At max rank, he has this ability called Conviction that heals for 185 or 370, double that healing for everybody in a pretty large radius around him. And the cooldown is 12 seconds, but you're going to get max cooldown on Guan Yu all the time. So it's going to be down to like 8 seconds or so. And then not only that, but anytime you heal a friendly ally with this ability, you're going to reduce your cooldowns by 2 seconds. And anytime you dash through someone with your dash, you're going to reduce your cooldowns by another 2 seconds. So this ability is up all the time. Oops, I hit back too many times there. This thing is up all the time. You're going to heal so much. So when you get into the team fight phase with this guy, he's just healing your teammates. So you can engage on another team. You can kind of both get low, disengage, but then they're still low, and you guys are just healing up as a team, and then you can re-engage again and just keep doing that in sieging towers, and it's just like the team just never goes away. So he does that really, really well. So in that sense, you could say Guan Yu does do team fighting exceptionally well. That makes him stand out, but he's also not bad in lane. So I'm just going to call him a good all-around god. Guan Yu's a very strong pick right now. And does a lot of things well. All right, next thing is Hercules. Hercules is great because he has this really strong combo, his 2, which is a knock-up, into his 1, which is a dash and a stun, that not only is really good at clearing wave because you can pull the archers back to where the melee minions are and then dash through all of them at once for a really strong clear. He's also really good at fighting other people with those abilities. If he pulls them up, he has a